Vic Fangio somewhere rubbing his hands together gleefully.
He's like all right.
It doesn't get better than this.
Maybe the silliest thing we do every year is hand out draft grades right after the draft. We pretend these letter values assigned to teams for selecting from a pool of thousands of athletes who nobody knows for sure how they'll translate to the NFL outside of maybe the top 20 dudes. We pretend like those letters have weight. The fact that you're here now is a sign of low IQ, and I am the lowest IQ draft expert, Brandon Perna. That's urinating tree. Holy shit! But it is absolutely necessary for us fans to understand our expectations heading into the season. So today I do want to answer which teams had great drafts, which teams had highly questionable drafts, which single team murdered the draft in a good way. I'll do my best to break down the draft grades today right after you subscribe. Thank you guys. For the insane quantity of people who just subscribed to this channel over the last week. Might be my best week ever on this channel. Let's go through some of my favorite teams in the draft. This is the look of a man who's been up all freaking weekend, going through every draft pick and grinding out the tape and the grades. I do it for you. My favorite chart that comes out every year is the consensus draft grade chart. Thank you, Renee Bugner, for posting this. Take a look at how your team fared and then please bitch about it in the comments below. My greatest pre-draft contribution came from my appearance on Check the Mic when I noted my favorite players in this draft class were Desmond Watson and Tez Johnson, the heaviest player in NFL draft history and the lightest player in this draft. That perfect pair went to the Buccaneers. Tampa also added the safest receiver in this draft, Emeka Egbuka, and went 4 straight defensive picks after with 2 corners and 2 edge defenders. This is the quintessential B+ draft grade. Probably grabbed their best player available in Egbuka at 19 and then hit on needs in the next 4 picks. Interestingly, I felt like Buccaneers fans were the only fan base that wouldn't be excited about drafting a first-round receiver. Bills fans would have probably liked a day 2 receiver to be added to their roster, but I love that general manager Brandon Beane went on local radio to defend his picks.
Well, you guys were bitching in 2018 about Josh Allen. You guys wanted Josh Rosen, and now you guys are bitching that we don't have a receiver. A year ago, I get you guys asking why we didn't have receivers, but I don't understand it now. You just saw us lead the league in points when you add all the postseason. No one scored more points. I get it. You got to have a show, and you got to have something to bitch about, but bitching about wide receiver is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
Here's what I will say about the Bills. Their pick of TJ Sanders in the second round at 41 is their most important pick in this draft. Buffalo traded with the Bears to select the South Carolina defensive tackle. Clearly, he was their guy, and if that's the correct choice on their defensive line, it will help their pass rush and their run defense. However, 3 of the next 4 picks were defensive front players. Alfred Collins to the Niners, Donovan Uzarika to the Cowboys, and JT Tuimolua. If one of those guys is better over the next couple seasons on the defensive front, we'll look back at this pick for the Bills and how it affected them. The absolute best reaction to getting drafted, Nick
Scorton.
When the Panthers drafted him in the second round. Put that man in the Hall of Fame now. My best prank phone call goes to the guy who prank called Tyler Warren. Yes, because Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich watched in horror as the world learned it was his son who prank called Shedeur Sanders on draft day and pretended to be Mickey Loomis.
I sincerely hope he whipped his kid's ass.
All while the man who pranked Tyler Warren remains anonymous. Smart. Now, 3 teams that I thought had excellent drafts are the Cardinals, the Eagles, and the Seahawks. I'm going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, who needed to fix their defense, and I don't think it's any coincidence that they spent 6 of their 7 picks on that side of the ball. It started with defensive tackle Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. But I think the really interesting pick was Michigan corner Will Johnson, who fell to the second round for injury concerns. If Johnson can stay healthy after being dinged up most of the pre-draft process, he's a first-round talent that they got at 47th overall. Johnson himself said after the draft, "They were saying things about my knee and all that, and I haven't really dealt with it in 2 years, so that's definitely frustrating, but it's all good." Now, 6 of the 7 games he missed last year were due to a turf toe injury, so hopefully that toe is nicer to the Cardinals than the one that was attached to Santonio Holmes' foot. Their 2 Ohio State guys were Cody Simon and Denzel Burke in the 4th and 5th, and they got a potential nickel safety in the 7th round with Nevada's Kitan Crawford. Kitan Crawford. I'm just gonna call him Kitty Crawford. I like that Arizona identified that the whole defense was a need and just poured all of their resources into it. Today's episode is sponsored by Element. Element is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix and sparkling water aimed at helping you stay hydrated and hitting optimal sodium levels. Each pack has a perfect dose of electrolytes, free of sugar, artificial colors, all the stuff you don't want in your body. I was just on a mini vacation with the family for my wife's birthday, and as one does when the responsibilities of work are thrown out the window, I consumed the types of drinks you don't really want to be overdoing. So, I started every morning with a pack of Element in my bottle of water. Yes, even before I got my coffee, to help hydrate me for the day. I dumped a ton of Element in my travel pack with my toothbrush, and I'm glad I did so I could rehydrate every morning. Now there's a bunch of flavors you can try: orange, grapefruit, citrus, raspberry, my favorite, chili mango. All are in the free sample pack, which you will get with any purchase as long as you use my link and only through my link below at drinkelement.com/TGS. Again, you only get the free sample pack with my link, and that's for new or current customers. You can try Element risk-free. If you don't like it, they will refund your order, no questions asked. Then we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. Surprise, surprise, the Eagles had a great draft. What else is new, right? The reigning Super Bowl champions had 10 picks, and after losing a few defensive players to free agency, they reloaded that side of the ball with their first 5 picks. First among them being Jahad Campbell, who I'm sure you've already heard 1,000 jokes about being explosive or terrorizing the opposing offenses. Very funny and original. The interesting thing here is they nearly traded up to pick 22 with the Chargers for Campbell. They got him at 31 instead, so probably the player they wanted the most was an even better value to them.
Wow! That's a low price!
Than they were anticipating. I think their second round pick, though, could have just as big of an impact this season as Campbell. They landed Texas safety Andrew Makuba. Makuba Gooding Jr. is an excellent coverage safety, a perfect C.J. Gardner-Johnson replacement who had 5 picks last year and allowed a passer rating of 12 when targeted. Throwing him and Mac McWilliams into an already near-perfect secondary is insane. They drafted 3 offensive linemen, so 2 will be all-pros when Jordan Mailata and Cam Jurgens retire in 8 years. Now, they didn't need a quarterback, but they did spend a 6th rounder on Kyle McCord from Syracuse, who led the NCAA in passing yards a year ago. So they have a new guy to take kneel downs when they're up by 40 points at the end of the NFC title game again. I also think they may have found a Milton Williams replacement at defensive tackle with Nebraska's Ty Robinson in the 4th round. The Seattle Seahawks had a sneaky great draft. Well, not so sneaky as it has the consensus 3rd best grade overall. When you have 11 picks, I think it's safe to say a few of them are going to turn out to be studs. Gray Zabel is an immediate starter at guard for them, and safety Nick Emanwari was one of the best athletes that tested at the Combine. He's going to fly around in that secondary next to Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, and I love that Emanwari lands with Mike McDonald. The Ravens drafted Kyle Hamilton while Mike McDonald was their DC still. Now, Sam Darnold also got a couple nice targets and tight end Elijah Arroyo and CSU wideout Torrey Horton. Or maybe those targets will be coming from quarterback Jalen Milroe because Seattle took the quarterback from Alabama in the 3rd round after trading away Sam Howell. I really love that pick at 97th overall because he's got elite speed and a good arm, and if it doesn't work out, who the fuck cares? Congratulations to the 49ers for earning Pro Football Focus's worst grade, a D. That's actually probably a great sign for you, San Francisco. Now, I think if you're a Niners fan, you have to at least respect that their first 5 picks were all defensive players. With Robert Saleh coming back and a bunch of young talent being added to that front, I think it's actually pretty good for San Francisco. The 3 teams that I thought had good drafts were the Giants, Steelers, and Tennessee Titans. The New York Giants did what I think a lot of us expected, which was take Abdul Carter, 3rd overall, then trade back into the 1st round and nab a quarterback. And by the time draft day was upon us, we had all the clues in the world that that quarterback would be Jaxson Dart. Dart is far from a perfect prospect, but at the end of the day, 26th overall is a fine place to take a shot on him. And things worked out pretty well the last time New York landed a quarterback from Ole Miss.
Tom Brady's the GOAT. Psych! I beat him twice!
Anything less than 2 Super Bowl wins and Dart will be a massive disappointment. But Dart, you're gonna have to do it against the fucking Chiefs, not the Patriots. Giants fans should worry that they have been given the consensus 2nd best draft grades. Russell Wilson is still your projected starter after all. Now, after that, they drafted tackle Marcus Bow from Purdue, who can play just about anywhere on their offensive line. Where they got him in the 5th is incredible value. Wherever Cam Scatabo went in the draft, people were going to love that pick as well. The running back, the Scat Man, officially lands in New York. Expect him to get a lot of run on special teams while he challenges Tyrone Tracy for carries. I think stylistically, though, Scatteroo and Tracy complement each other nicely. You've got explosive and punishing. Jaxson Dart has the physical tools, but his rise to the 1st round still a bit odd. If he's not the quarterback of the future in New York, then this becomes a very average draft instead of one of everyone's favorites. The Pittsburgh Steelers, good draft. Everyone was waiting to see if the Steelers were going to take Shedeur Sanders with the 21st overall pick, and of course that did not happen. Instead, Pittsburgh took an excellent defensive tackle in Derek Harmon, who tragically lost his mother just hours after he was selected. They also nabbed one of my favorite running backs, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, who's going to be a perfect replacement for Najee Harris, in my opinion. Pittsburgh also landed 2 Ohio State players, edge rusher Jack Sawyer, who basically single-handedly won the semifinal for the Buckeyes. In terms of football analysis for Jack Sawyer, I'd say he's a modern warrior. Mean stride, and mean pride. They also drafted quarterback Will Howard, who came off the board in the 6th round, which is honestly a perfect spot to draft Will Howard. Tons of upside if that hits. Ultimately, this draft suggests that they will sign Aaron Rodgers, and if that doesn't happen, this draft is going to look strange for the Steelers, but I think they know he's joining the team soon. If Rodgers does not sign, though, Steelers fans might get exactly what they really wanted. A terrible season with a losing record, so they are in position to go quarterback in 2026, which of course is a much stronger QB class. Here's some teams that I thought had highly questionable drafts. Now, I'm not saying they're good or bad, but kind of boom or bust, real busty type situations. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Why do I think the Jags had a questionable draft? Well, I don't think that is because they traded a haul to go up and get Travis Hunter. James Gladstone has been talking about Travis like he's the next coming of Jesus Christ.
The game of football itself, Travis Hunter is who we've been hunting up. Couldn't be more jacked to be sitting right here beside him and introduce you all to the man of the hour.
Which, who knows? He might be. I pray to Travis Hunter before every meal. Dear Travis Hunter, we are thankful for this meal we are about to receive, and we give you all of our glory. And my grandma has multiple creepy paintings of Travis Hunter in her bedroom. He could be Jesus. Now, the way they talk about them, I think they have a good plan for how to get the most out of them on both sides of the ball. Yes, I said them because he is 2 players in one. But the Jags still had a massive need at defensive tackle, and at no point across their 9 picks did they address that massive void up front. This was a draft rich with defensive linemen, by the way. It feels like malpractice to have 2 really good edge rushers and Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker and not get anyone to eat up space in the middle. Just a weird move by the Jags. Now, corner Caleb Ransaw was a solid pick in the 3rd, and if Bashal Tootin holds on to the football, he's a steal at running back in the 4th.
I've never heard that. Daniel, there he got 4-3-2. Wait a minute.
No, hey,
hold on a second.
I did not hate the Rams draft, but they traded out of the 1st round to add a 2026 first rounder, and I think that's a questionable move for a team that's built to win right now with Matty Stafford in his twilight years. At some point, I was expecting them to take a quarterback to develop under Stafford, but they only had 6 picks. None of them were passers. The Rams could have drafted tight end Mason Taylor in the 1st round with that pick. They did select tight end Terrence Ferguson from Oregon in the 2nd. Now, Ferguson, solid pick, but if Mason Taylor is the dude I think he is, the Rams should have nabbed him. They drafted famed basketball player Chris Paul later, who was also somehow the most efficient tackler in all of college football last season, so great job, Chris Paul and the Rams. It would be easier for Chris Paul if he still played with the Clippers, though, right? That's a lot of travel. Then we've got the Cleveland Browns. The funniest draft grade is Mel Kiper giving the Browns an A+. A draft grade that also has a little bit of Mel's jism mixed in with it. When the Browns finally drafted Shedeur, Mel couldn't stop orgasming for 24 straight hours.
Seth Markman comes in and says, Mel, you're trending on Twitter. I don't know what they said. I gotta believe it wasn't nice.
But eventually, the Browns stopped the bleeding. Now they have one of the strangest QB rooms I've ever seen. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, 3rd round pick Dylan Gabriel, and of course, 5th rounder Sanders. It's going to be a tough way for those guys to find reps, in the offseason and preseason, and I think Kenny Pickett's the odd man out in training camp. I fully expect 40-year-old Joe Flacco to win that job too right now, but the Browns will always be judged by the Travis Hunter trade, and if Hunter becomes the star we expect and say Mason Graham doesn't pan out, that's going to be a really bad moment, and a very long list of bad moments in the Browns draft history. If Shedeur is good, though, or if Dylan Gabriel's good, if he's good, then Cleveland had a lovely draft. I think Mason Graham's a great fit next to Myles Garrett. It reminds me of Von Miller and Derek Wolfe together. They got a linebacker who was a phenomenal blitzer at UCLA and Schwessinger. The double dip in QBs overtook the fact that Cleveland drafted 2 really good running backs, starting with Ohio State's Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee later, who forced 70 missed tackles last year. So 2 QBs, 2 Dylans, 2 backs. The Browns are double trouble. The New Orleans Saints are a franchise in a tough spot. And it's not just because they're sort of being held hostage by Derek Carr.
Yes, I have to say this. I hate that I have to say this, but I have to say this. Yes, I have a shoulder injury, despite what ESPN says.
They spent the 10th pick on tackle Kelvin Banks, who may or may not have been worthy of that spot based on consensus boards.
Some people's voices don't need to be heard right now.
But the really divisive pick came at 40th overall when they took quarterback Tyler Shough over Shedeur Sanders. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad move. It is the biggest gamble. I really like Shough. We made a video on him here, right? But people are always going to roll their eyes when a team takes a quarterback that's going to be 26 his rookie year, a guy who spent 7 years in college because he had a ton of injuries and didn't really get that much experience outside of 2024. He is as big of a gamble as Shedeur Sanders. I think their best value pick, the Saints, running back Devin Neal out of KU in the 6th, the guy who can do some real damage when Kamara needs a break and a possible replacement for him in a year or two, whenever Father Time finally catches Kamara. The most curious draft probably goes to my Denver Broncos. They received consensus grades as one of the reachiest teams. Are those reaches gonna pan out like Jack Reacher, where they're just dogs and they eviscerate anyone who gets in their way, even though nobody really heard of them before he came into town? Or are these reaches kind of the old reach around, the most shameful form of pleasure? To find out, come back tomorrow when I break down the Broncos draft for you and more of the AFC West draft, saving that for tomorrow's episode. Now, everyone else hated it, but I liked it. The Detroit Lions, a solid draft, and Dan Campbell found the most Dan Campbell player coming into the league in Boise State.
Detroit Lions select Amit Hassanin, defensive end, Boise State.
Coach, I would die for you, Coach. I just want you to believe in me. I just want you to believe in me, Coach. I would die on that field for you.
It's ironic because players used to go to Detroit to just die. Look how much the world can change. They did pay a hefty price, trading up into the 3rd round to get Isaac Tesla to the Motor City. A Tesla going to the Motor City just seems like a fucking crime against humanity. But I like that they stayed true to their identity, beefed up their interior, while also adding some needed depth at wide receiver and edge. The Chicago Bears picking Colston Loveland at 10 might not have been the reach everyone was saying it was. Because Ian Rappaported that the Broncos and the Texans were aggressively trying to trade up in the 1st round, seemingly for Colston Loveland.
The Bears take Colston Loveland at 10, and a bunch of calls stopped.
Loveland was the bell of the ball.
Okay. But that takes me to my day 2 best value pick, and it's the Jets going Mason Taylor, tight end. Double trouble. We thought a team might trade up into the back end of the 1st round to get Mason Taylor, but the Jets got him in the 2nd. Tight end is such a tough position to evaluate in terms of what these guys can do as rookies, and the Jets may have found an equal piece in Mason Taylor as Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland in the 2nd. Best setup for their fans? The Packers drafting a receiver in the 1st round for the first time since 2002.
Matthew Golden, wide receiver of Texas.
That bone they threw out there did distract everyone from the rest of their kind of odd draft selections. The Packers didn't prioritize edge or corner until day 3. Texas edged. Baron Sorrell waited until Saturday to hear his name called by the hosting Packers. They also picked up speed rusher Colin Oliver, who missed all but 2 games with a foot injury this past year at Oklahoma State. If he's able to return to form, he could be a real playmaker on 3rd down for that Packers defense. They also waited until the 7th round to take a DB, leaving Packers fans wondering if Jair Alexander will actually be coming back. But with reports that Jair wasn't willing to restructure for another team in trying to trade for him, this could drag out and ultimately end with his outright release before training camp.
It doesn't get better than this.
I know that guy. That's Urinating Tree. Holy shit. And finally, my one team that murdered the draft, the Baltimore Ravens, murdered the shit out of this draft. And considering a flock of ravens is called a conspiracy? Wait, I thought it was a murder. Oh, that's crows? The title Murdered the Draft was foreshadowing for the Ravens. Shit. What's a flock of ravens? Collective nouns for a group of ravens include a conspiracy, a treachery, a rave, and an unkindness in practice. Most people use the more generic flock. The Ravens always treachery the draft. It's an annual tradition. You see players that fall to them and you think, why the hell didn't anyone else see it coming? Safety Malachi Starks. That's so Raven. He is just such a Raven. And they get a ball-hawking safety next to Kyle Hamilton. Then Mike Green, hell of a value pick at 59, but of course that comes with the baggage of his past treacheries, which you can look into yourself. Double trouble. But either way, he's going to be an absolute technician coming off the edge for that team, and they got a first-round talent at the end of the 2nd round. Not just a first-round talent, but possibly the actual best pass rusher in this draft class. And one of the more telling picks in this draft was 6th-round kicker Tyler Loop, which kind of suggests the Justin Tucker investigation is not going well, and perhaps the greatest kicker of all time will not be a Raven by the time the 2025 season kicks off. And that's who murdered the draft. Please subscribe here to That's Good Sports. Thank you to everyone who just subscribed because of our Shedeur Sanders video. I hope you like football stuff because that's all I fucking do here.